another series is closing out its time on the Famicom. Ys III is kind of the last hurrah for classic Ys. It's the final time that Ys would be available on the early microcomputers that it came from, and going forward the series would be console-focused. Ys III is an enormous departure from the original Ys games, and there's quite a few unusual things about its development. For one, here's the box of the original computer version. Notice anything off? Originally, this wasn't called Ys III. It was just Wanderers from Ys. When it was released on the PC Engine, 3 years after the original computer game release, the title was changed to Ys III. Also, Nihon Falcom has never credited the original development team for the game. The presumed reason for that is that shortly before the game was released, most of the staff quit and formed their own development company, Quintet. The original Ys duology formed a complete story about the swordsman Adol traveling to the mysterious flying continent of Ys. They featured combat where Adol would just run into enemies, and if he hit them at the right angle, they'd take some damage. Ys III gets rid of all of that. In fact, Ys does not appear in the story, at all. And the game has been given a side view of the action, and you have to hit the attack button now to do anything. As you explore the world of Ys III, the A button jumps and the B button attacks. Holding down B will actually auto-attack. Adol will just swing his sword as fast as he can. If you have a consumable item like a medical herb equipped, pressing start will activate it. Select brings up the menu, and there aren't a whole lot of options here. You can check out your stats, equip items, see any special quest items that you possess, and save or load your game. There are 2 battery save slots in Ys III, and you can save your game at pretty much any time. The game has a lengthy cutscene to start with, where you're arriving at the town of Redmont, and that is the only town in the game. It acts as your hub as you play, and you'll return here after you do any dungeon, get your new quest, and then depart again. There's only 2 shops in town, a healer that will sell you herbs, and a smith who will sell you equipment. At the start of the game, you get exactly enough money to buy the first weapon, the first armor, the first shield, and 1 healing herb. A miner has become trapped in some caves as monsters appeared, and your first quest is to rescue them. Movement in the Famicom version of Ys III is a little bit awkward. You're really floaty in this version. The slightest tap of the D-pad will result in huge movement, and as you jump, you can really steer yourself around things. It's also oddly difficult to go up and down steps. The key, as it turns out, is to look for the line below the steps, not the steps themselves. Though it still requires that you really line yourself up just right, and as I mentioned, fine control is really difficult here. A major problem with Ys III, and this is across all versions, is the damage scaling. When you enter the mines at level 1, touching an enemy will take off about 1/4 of your life. If you're bold enough to move past the first section, then the enemies there are almost instantly fatal. To recover health, you have to either use an herb or step outside into the sunlight. Herbs are so expensive early on in the game that I'd really recommend staying close to the entrance and retreating to heal when you're doing your early grinding. Because enemies hit this hard, all you can do is play it safe, pick them off very carefully, and grind until it's no longer a risk. The level scaling in Ys III is really dramatic. Max level in the game is 12. So every time you level up, it's a big difference. So most of your time playing will be spent finding safe places to stand where you can hit people, and repeatedly killing the same enemies over and over again until you're tough enough to move on to the next section. The bosses can be a huge roadblock. They can drain your life away in an instant, and you can't even hurt them unless you've leveled up enough. You do have one special tool that you can use. When you defeat enemies, you get ring power. And the rings do convenient things like greatly increase your attack power or regenerate your health. But wearing them costs that ring power. Because ring power runs down a lot faster than you can earn it, you're going to want to save it for the bosses. Or at least the bosses where you haven't figured out the spot where you can stand and they can't hit you. The legacy of Ys III is weird. It's had not 1, but 2 different remakes. and the remakes were released almost simultaneously. Oath and Felghana is the remake that has essentially replaced this version of Ys. On top of that, the Ys series has continued to this day, but there's two different Ys 4s. In Japan, Ys III is not well regarded. It's the weird red-headed stepchild of the series, even though it was really looking forward to what the series would become. At least the Famicom version gets some respect for being such a high-quality presentation on a low-end console. My take on Ys III is that I actually kinda like it. Not quite this version. I think the Super Famicom one is still my preference, but this is a really good port of the game. My biggest problem with it is that heavy grind, especially at the beginning. But that was going to be a given when you were playing Ys. I think it looks and sounds great. The 8-bit renditions of the music really come across pretty well. So as a game that has about a dozen different ports, this probably isn't the version you'd go to play, but if you only had it to play, I don't think you'd be really unhappy with it.